All right, hello. We're live. We are working on programming tonight. Actually, finally getting back into working on the Max project, and so my plan is I don't want to go back to Unity. Like right off the bat, right now I don't want to go back to Unity. Like I stopped using Unity. I didn't like kind of I felt restricted with Unity, and it was spent more time learning the engine than I did actually doing anything in it. Um, so I gonna actually work in the collision engine. So it's the engine we've been building. It's the engine we've been building in past streams. You see me work on. So I'm gonna be using that. I've kind of got it in a state now where at least a little bit it's usable. Especially like for today, I'm not gonna be using 90% of the features. So, um, but it's in a state now where I can kind of start using it and we can kind of start figuring out where the issues are going to be as we go along. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to me. Have a game in my own engine, all built. But today the focus is going to be a combat system. I did not end up getting to that in Unity. I spent a lot of time on player movement, sort of world building, the UI elements and things, but I did not get to combat. And I kicked around the idea so long of doing either turn-based combat or real-time combat. Um, and I tried doing projectile systems for ranged attacks and spell attacks and things. I tried doing the actual melee attacks, the swinging stuff, sword swinging, and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't bad. I didn't mind it, but I don't know. Personally, I do not enjoy real-time combat in games. I like being able to kind of, especially like RPGs. In RPGs, I like to be able to, look through options and really, take my time assessing what my options are for combat. So that's what I want to make. I want to make a turn-based system, um, and so that's what we're gonna work on. I did work on a little bit off camera because didn't actually have anything of this project done in the collision engine, so I went ahead and made some scenes, made some characters, and then I made the enemy classes and encounters, and then a player. And we'll get into I'll go through it a little bit so you can kind of know where I'm at, and we'll walk through my my process for making the enemies, how I'm gonna make the enemies going forward. So yeah, without further ado, if you will, we're gonna hop into this and then turn on our display capture. Oh no, not my malware bytes. um, okay. So this right now is the game scene. It's a lot to take in right off the bat. So we'll go top to bottom. We'll just go through it. Constant int zoom amount. This is for our camera. The engine, I was working on a camera that could move around and zoom in and out. This is just our zoom amount for how far in we want the camera to be zoomed in. Right now it's just set to 3, which is fine. That's pretty close to the player. I like that. If we need to ever change it, the constant's right here. It's really easy to change. Private sprite sheet. I've talked about this a lot. I don't know that I've ever shown it, but our sprite sheet is here. Sprite sheet takes in a texture from the content, and then you give it a cell size or sprite width, sprite height, and then it will create an array of textures based off of that, and then spits it back out. So that's what that is. And then private classes player. This is our player class. Private classes encounter dictionary. This is inheriting from iDictionary, taking a string and an array of enemies. And this is just basically a custom dictionary, just overridden so that I don't have to worry about specifying each time that it's a string. And for enemy, I can just say, hey, give me an encounter dictionary. So yeah, all the basic dictionary stuff going on here. Nothing shocking. Game scene, this is just the game constructor. Constructing our sprite sheet, constructing our player. Um, it takes in, so if we go to our player, the player constructor takes in object information, which is here, which just overrides basic object information from the RPG class, which I don't have open. Um, basic object information just has the name, ID, and description. But for this, I wanted a texture. I wanted some kind of sprite image. So I overrode it and then added into it sprite, and we add the sprite onto the constructor, send the rest of it to the basic object, and then set our sprite there. So that's all that is. And then new classes.attributes, again, overriding classes that already exist. So in the RPG engine, we have the attributes, which now that I have it open, I can show that one. The attributes are, strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, within your main modifiers, equipment modifiers, and buff modifiers. And then your total modifiers down here. So this is all this is. Originally, I was doing modifier calculations and everything in here, and then I decided I don't want to do that. That's, that wouldn't be a good idea. I wouldn't, leave it flexible so that you can put in your own scores and your own modifiers, or, one or the other, however you want to do it. So that's why then in this, I'm overriding it so that we have, we can do some other things with it. So right now I'm using it and saying, here's our constructor with all the, the 6 scores, but we're taking in our subtractor times 2 just to give us 10. But we're doing this because our modifiers are strength divided by the divisor, so 2. So strength divided by 2 minus 5. So that's our score divided by divisor minus subtractor. So in order to get 0 on our modifier, we need our subtractor times 2. And that's why we're doing that. And then we also have a scaled attributes. And this just scales up the scores by just a increment amount. I guess it's more increment, but whatever. We're boosting them up, basically. And that's for elite enemies, boss enemies, things that might be a little bit stronger than other things. I'll explain more about that when we get to the enemies. Which is now actually, so here we're instantiating our dictionary, and then we're setting up our enemies. So our enemies, we have a lot of classes in this one. So we have the basic abstract enemy class. This has all the information. So it says your basic enemy basic object information, which will get changed to just object information, so I can add sprites onto that. Player level min and max, that's the range your player needs to be for this enemy to attack, for you to receive this enemy in combat. Enemies have levels, max health and min health, a health die, which is set defaults to D12, and then they have their own attributes. So something I've adopted, I'm using obviously the run-of-the-mill RPG attributes for the engine, but I don't know. I don't want to use them like let me explain. So here we have a strength score, or modifier rather, and that's that's basic. That's just strength. But toughness is what this game's defense is going to be, and it's going to be the Constitution plus the Dexterity. So we're still using these actual things, and like if we ever give a ability score increase screen, they would still be referred to as this. But in game they'll have different uses. They'll have more specific uses, because I don't want to just use run-of-the-mill RPG system. That's kind of not what that doesn't fit the smaller game that I'm trying to go for. So I want to kind of scale down these 6 core attributes, try to bring them more in generalize them more into saying like, hey, this is for strength, this is, your toughness, this is your health, this is your ability to cast magic, that kind of stuff, and just kind of combine them and more, tighten them up. I guess not generalize, but tighten them up. And then we just have properties for health, max health, health die, level, and then your level range. And this is just an override of the string, just to get a nice little format of everything. Because I've been running this in console, just to kind of test everything, which is what we're gonna do today. I don't want to work on UI, so we're gonna run everything in console because it's just turn-based. So text is important. If you can get it working in a console, you're just adding UI on top of that, and we can do that stuff later. So yeah, but that's the base enemy class. You can see also it has a couple interfaces. This just tells it that it can receive damage for attacks, and this says that it can attack. Pretty simple. That you could have got that from the name, but here we are. So that's the abstract enemy class. Then we have an abstract basic enemy. I need to make this one abstract as well, actually. Sorry, hold on. Okay. Okay, so we have an abstract basic enemy. Well, what's this do? This has its own constructor, taking in object information, attributes, health die, player level min and max, max health, and regular health. But there's nothing else. You don't see any properties or anything on this. So why are we doing this? Well, for the basic enemy, per my special notebook, I actually did notes for this one, and actually tried to think about things before I rushed in and did them. But for the basic enemy, we want the enemy level for the basic enemy to be within plus or minus 3 levels of the player. Obviously, the minimum clamped to 1 to level 1. And that's what we're doing here. So for the player level, we're taking in player level here, but for the base int level that you can see on there, we're saying, hey, do a random between player level -3 and player level +3. Our minimum down here, the player level -3, we're clamping between 1 and the player level, so that it doesn't go negative. We don't want it to go negative. We just want to stay at least between 1 and our player level +3. So that's what that's doing, and that gives us a nice assortment of different level creatures. When enemies are created, if their max health and min health are not specified, then we run this get health function, which starts out on level 1. Health is the constitution modifier plus the amount on the die. So a d8 would be 8, d10 10, whatever. And then for each level after that, we make a skill check for the die plus the constitution modifier, and that's how the health is created. And you can see that then. So I made a couple encounters of different things, but we'll get to that actually. But you can see that there. I'll show that in a bit. So that's the basic enemy. Now, if I go over here to, you saw that when I showed it, rat inherits from basic enemy. So now this rat has the constructor with player level, max health, and regular health. And then in the base, it's sending new basic object information, an ID, the name of the enemy, which is rat, and then a description, common dungeon rat, watch out for its bite. And then sending in its attributes. So strength is a random value between 12 and 16, and dexterity is a random value between 8 and 12. It has a d6 health, and then we're sending the player level, and the player level min and max, which you would see this creature between levels 1 and 3, basically. And then we're sending it the max health and regular health. But again, if these are just 0, the base class is going to set the health based on the constitution and die rolls. So yeah, that's how I'm doing that. It's a lot of object oriented with this one. So you can see that in my encounters, we create a new encounter called just rats, and create a new enemy array, putting in enemies.rats with the player level, and put in 3 of those. So if I go ahead and use just rats, in my for each loop. In my for each loop, I'm just logging all the enemies. So we do just rats and start. This is just drawing the player. This is just making sure I could make the player work and everything. But we don't care about that right now. We just care about this console window. So you can see console, player, description, the player, no strength, no toughness, 8 health, level 1. And then just the actual raw attributes. And then we have rat, level 3, 14 health, strength 1, toughness 0. And then all these attributes. Rat, level 2, strength 1, toughness -1, health 12 out of 12. And then rat, level 1, strength 1, toughness 1, health 6. So you can see just by doing this code, I have taking this code and having the same rat object. I'm able to have 3 different rats, 3 different rats to fight basically. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. So that's basic enemies. I did the same with elite enemies, but they're a bit different. So obviously that's the point of me doing different abstract classes on top of enemy before abstracting out to or inheriting from an actual enemy class. The basic enemies, the elite enemies, and the boss enemies are all going to behave differently. So an elite enemy will have attributes, and then an attribute scaler. So the attribute scaler, this is what I was talking about earlier, where we send it the scaled attributes. So we supply it with base attributes, and this is just kind of like, okay, here's what the attributes I want. But then depending on a scaler, we can say how much it scales up. So if you have like a difficulty rating maybe, or you just want like elite enemies harder or something like that, whatever, you can scale up the elite enemies attributes. And right now so we're sending all that information, enemy information, attributes.scaled attributes with that attribute scaler, sending it the health die, max health, regular health, again, getting set if it's 0. And then this is level. So this is the level of the elite enemy, and it's random.next. The minimum value is the player level, so we can't have a level lower than the player. And then it's player level +5 for the max, plus the attribute scaler -1. So we're defaulting our scaler to 1. So if it's a regular scaler, actually now the way I'm doing it, now that it's a plus, I want to say 0. So it doesn't matter. I had that as 1 because I was multiplying before. Now that I'm just adding, it's actually adding 1, and that's not going to be the right value. But we're adding the attribute scaler as well then. So when you're scaling the attributes, you'd also be scaling the level up a little bit. And then 100 for the player level min and max. You can get these basically at any point in the game. It's kind of the idea of setting that very high. And then boss enemies I haven't done yet, but it's going to be sort of similar. They'll be able to scale their attributes. There'll be different things. I'm thinking about trying to do like a 2-stage system with the bosses. So we'll see how I handle that. I'll see how I handle that. But yeah, that is enemies. And then I did basically the same thing with attacks. So attack takes in a damage die, an int modifier, and an I receive damage target. So that's why I did an interface, just so I could send, whether it's a player or an enemy, doesn't matter, it can accept both as long as they have a health field to change. And then we have the constructor that's receiving all this, and then we have a function deal damage, target.health minus equals skill check.mate check damage die plus modifier. So then that's the abstract class. So then we have 2 classes after that, melee and ranged. Obviously, inheriting. For the melee attack, nothing is changed. We're still sending it a damage die and a target. but we're adding in an I can attack attacker. So we're adding on the person who's actually making the action. And that's so that we can say, hey, for the modifier, use the attacker's strength modifier because it's a melee attack. For the range attack, we're saying it's the same thing, but we're saying, hey, use the attacker's dexterity modifier. And these will probably change, or maybe we'll do a combination. You know, like how I was saying here with the different strength, toughness. Maybe we would have something for, you know, just perception or something like that. That's maybe a dexterity plus a wisdom, something like that. Something more, again, scaled down. But for now, that'll be fine. We'll build that bridge when we cross it and get to it. But yeah, that's everything. That is everything I worked on off camera, and I hope that made sense. I know I kind of buzzed through that. It took me like 15 minutes at least to get through that. But yeah, that's everything I worked on off camera. So now we're gonna get into the turn-based combat. Like I said, that's gonna be the focus. I'm gonna do it all in console. I just dropped my pencil on the floor. But we're going to do it all in console just to make sure I can get it working, and then we'll come back and apply a UI to it later. I'm trying to pick up my pencil, I'm sorry. Come here, pencil. Oh, okay, there we go. Alright, so. I'm looking over in chat, making sure I didn't miss any, okay. Okay. So we're gonna start our combat. We're gonna go into classes, and say class, add class. Well, we'll just call it combat for right now. So this I did not note out. Actually I did. Silly me, I did write it down. There you go. I wrote it down. So the first note I made is that the players will fight solo, but the enemies will have parties. So that's kind of, you know, the encounter system, having an array of enemies to fight, helps that. So I can just pull in an encounter, which is why I did that. But we'll need a player object. And then we want enemies dot enemy, not elite enemy, just regular enemy. Thank you. Just base enemy class. Enemies. So we want a player, and then we want the enemies that we're fighting. We can create a constructor for that. And then we'll do a public void start. We'll say public void end, and we'll call this for getting loot and everything. Okay. So we have a start and end, and then public void next turn. Probably take in a parameter for whose turn it is, but we will come back to that. Now I think that we could do this. So we say Q of okay, so if I do Q, it has to be the same type. I guess we could say object for right now, just to get it down. But we'll say turn order And then turn order equals new queue. Turn order dot add dot queue. How do I do this? And queue. Sorry. Turn order dot enqueue player. This dot player. And then for each var e in enemies, turn order dot enqueue e. And again, we want to make sure we're saying this dot enemies. Just in case we do any changes in the constructor, we want to make sure we're getting the ones that are going to be used by the combat class. And this does not need to be stop. So that's starting our queue. We're starting with the player. The player will start at the top of every combat. And actually, what I'm going to do is say null, because then our next turn is going to say, first off, if turn order equals null, throw new null reference exception turn order. So if it's null, we want to throw an error. It shouldn't be null when we're doing next turn, so we need to be able to capture that. But we want to say turn order dot am I using link? Get out of here, link. Get too many functions right now. Turn order dot not peak, not trim excess. We want to dequeue. So dequeuing, we're returning an object. Var object equals var obj equals. So dequeuing, we're returning the object and removing it from our queue. So at the end, we want to say turn order dot enqueue object. So we're putting it back in at the end of our queue every time. And that's what we're gonna. That's how we're gonna do the start. So on the start, we'll say next turn. And that's why we need null. And we'll say if obj is not null. Sorry, not equal to null. I've been doing a lot of database stuff. So if object is not equal to null, and put our object back in the queue. If it is null, it's not going to run that. And then also we want to say actually this will just be not a single line statement. Because we're going to do stuff with this. Actually, it would be nice out object what we could call combatant, I guess. Combatant. So we'll say that that's an out. That's an output modifier, output parameter. So if it's not equal to null, we'll say out or combatant is equal to object. because then we can do var no object combatant. Oh, out object combatant. There we go. I was like, I've done this before. I know it works. I forgot out. That's why. But now we can say output object combatant. That's going to create a new object variable for us, and then we can access it down here. We don't have to, it's a little nice. We don't have to. We don't have to worry about making statements up here. It's just nice. It's all in one line. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to think about what I want to do. So we want to set combatant to be obj after we get it. And then we want to say if it's not equal to null, and queue it. But if it is equal to null, dequeue again. There we go. And actually then that means we don't need this statement because we're gonna dequeue the null, and then once we dequeue the null, we won't have to worry about it ever again. So there we go. So, okay, going through the function, if our turn order is null, if our queue is null, we're going to throw a null reference exception. Otherwise, we're going to continue on and set our object to be the next item in the queue. If that object is null, we're going to get the next item in the queue. And then we're going to set our combatant to be the obj. And then turn order in queue. And actually, you know what? We don't even have to do this. There we go. I was looking at it again, and I'm like, wait, that's kind of dumb. We can just get rid of the null. Don't have to do that. Problem solved. There we go. So we're dequeuing our object, setting our combatant to be that, and then going about our day. And we're just gonna save ourselves a line of code here. And there we go. So we're setting our combatant and then enqueuing our combatant. So we're putting it back in the end of the list. And enqueue puts it at the end of the list. That's the important part. Okay, so that's next turn. So we're getting our combatant. Now we do stuff. Oh, so we have to determine if the thing is a player or if it's an enemy. If it's a player, we're gonna prompt it to do stuff. That's that's the UI and everything. If it's an enemy, right now we're just gonna auto choose to fight every time. But I do want to implement a goal-oriented action plan for that. I think that would be good. Goal-oriented action planning is you have a goal. So in this case, it would be kill player, or maybe it's middle of combat. The enemy's goal is heal or something like that. But you have a goal, a series of actions, of available actions that the object can take, and then you have a plant. You have the series of those actions and any prerequisites to those actions that the object has to go through, and it's trying to find the best path. So it's really interesting. It's very basic AI, or I guess not basic. It's pretty robust. But it's similar to think about it. It's how in a similar sense. I won't say it's how definitively, but in a similar fashion, the grunts the grunts work the same way in Halo. So the grunts attack together and with an elite. If the elite is killed, the grunts run away. The grunts try to run away from you, and that's sort of a goal-oriented action. At first, the goal is attack the player. They're with the elite. Now the elite's dead, so now their goal is to flee or hide, which is very interesting. It's very cool, and it's what makes games like that feel more real. It doesn't just feel like you're, fighting some brain dead enemy. It actually feels like it's doing something, and that's really cool. I like that. I like that stuff. So that's probably the course of action we're going to take, but not today. That's not going to be the focus of this stream. The focus of this stream is apparently explaining what the focus of the stream is and not actually doing it. Okay, so when I said I planned it out, I didn't plan it out that much. First off, let's just hit the ground running. Let's just do something. If combatant is player, do player stuff. Else. So really, if it's not the player, we don't care what it is, because we know it's an enemy. So we can just do an else. There's no other things we're checking for. It's just either it's a player or it's not a player. Do enemy stuff. So, like I said, we're doing this in console for right now. So everything is going to be printed in console, which actually reminds me, I want to not print this stuff anymore. But yeah, so if our combatant is a player, we want to show a UI in the console. We want to give them a list of options that they can do. In the list of options, so show list of options, attack, magic, skill, item, and flee. Skill I had planned to be more miscellaneous things like heal. If you could, rather than using an item to heal, you could try to do a skill check to heal or something, or try to just defend. So you would maybe have an increased defense score because you're actively defending. Attacking is obviously just attacking. You would have your list of available attacks based on current equipment. Magic is not something I'm worried about yet, but it'll be similar to attack. So based on current spells you have, you can cast those spells. And then obviously item, if you can switch items, you can switch equipment, or you can use consumable items. And then flee, you try to leave the battle receiving no loot. So those would be your options. So down here. Hi Trey, how are you? Did you get a new camera? I didn't. It does look like a cleaner image. But I don't know what I did. It just looks nicer, and I don't know why. But I'm good. Thank you for stopping by. We're working on RPG stuff tonight. Actually getting back into the Max project and restarting the Max project in the Collision engine. So down here we are going to write a private void show menu with a bunch of console statements. God, I cannot type. Console dot write line. I'll just put an empty one in there for right now. But so here we'll say show list of options, show menu. So we need 5 of these. Paste them in here. And then we're gonna say player turn. And we need to put another question mark on there. There we go. It just looks better. It just looks better. I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know what I did. My mic is like right in my face though. I need to. There we go. Push that back a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. It just looks better. Lights. Alexa, set Trey's room lights to 100% brightness.
Okay.
Didn't really do much, but also I finally got my mic settings figured out, I think. So I have noise reduction and actual shit on, so hopefully there's not a lot of background noise. I'm sure you heard my Alexa, that's right under my microphone. But hopefully there's not a lot of background noise. I tested it yesterday with Jared by turning on my air conditioner, and he didn't hear my air conditioner. So that's a good sign. I can actually stream with my air conditioner on now and not have to worry about it. Okay, so we're gonna put some numbers on these so we can use the numbers instead of writing out the word every time. So write our line, and then we'll say console.write. We don't want to write line, we just want to write. Enter option. Because then if we do write, our option will actually appear alongside of that, so it'll look nicer. And then we want to say console.read console.read. Sorry. We're gonna do console.read. And do a switch on that. And that returns an int. Returns the next character from the input stream or -1. There are currently no more characters to be read. Okay, so we want to do read key or read line dot remove enter option. Dot replace enter option with nothing. And then case 1 break. And then we'll take all this, do Control D, Control D, Control D, Control D. And then 2, 3, 4. So let's start with attack. If we attack, we want to get a list of the enemies. And actually, we would probably want to do something like enemy dead. So obviously our alive enemies would go in here, but our dead enemies would go here. And they wouldn't be, the dead enemies wouldn't be in the queue either, so we'll have to worry about that as well. But get a list of enemies to attack, and then allow the player to select an enemy. So probably do this in another function. I copy all this so I don't have to rewrite the bulk of it. Enemies, and then for each var e in enemies, we're gonna int I equals 0 to 1. I plus plus. We're gonna say I e dot name. E dot name, and then we'll show the health beside it. E dot health. E dot max health. Oh boy. My typing fingers are not there today. And then we'll say enter option. And so we wouldn't do a switch on this one. We would say var, well, int enemy selected is equal to, replace that int dot parse. So parse this value that's left to an integer and then subtract 1. And this is going to be select enemy. And again, we're going to say out enemy enemy. And then enemy will equal enemies I. No, sorry. Enemy selected. There we go. So select enemy, out enemy, enemy. I'll take a sip of my water. I'm a little thirsty. Okay. So we've selected our enemy. And then we want to just say, right now we'll just say var a is equal to new attack, attacks dot, we'll just say melee attack for right now. Damage die is going to be a die dot d6, and then attacker is player, target is enemy. And then we want to say a dot deal damage. Okay. So that's show menu. Just select enemy. We need something that is private void show combatants. And then console dot right line. I kind of want to do a console dot clear as well, just so that the screen is clear when we show the combatants. Then we want to show player player.health and player.max health. And then again, for each var e in enemies. We're gonna copy this line. Let's say e.name, name, e.health, e.max health. And then we'll say console dot right line back. Go back. And then sorry, console dot read line we'll just say if right now, just make sure to type it correctly. And we'll do console.readline dot to upper is equal to back, go back. So we'd actually just want to say show menu. And again, we'd probably do a clear on this as well. And a clear on this. So we would say show menu again. Well, no. We wouldn't. That's right. We won't do a clear there. That's fine. Spending too much time on the console code, but that's whatever. Okay, so then once we deal damage, we'll console dot right line e dot name I'm actually gonna do this and return an int just so we can return it, or actually even void deal damage out int damage. Damage is equal to skill checks, all that, and then minus equal damage. So we're still subtracting the damage, but this way we know what it is. Out int damage. E.name enemy.name. That's why it wasn't working. Enemy.name took damage. And then we would say next turn. And console.writeLine, press any key to continue. That way we can see it. Okay. If, or actually, console.read key. Next turn. Oh, I see. Right, because we did our output variable. So we'll say take public void take turn object combat and that will have all that code in it. And then we'll just say take turn combat, which is what we're going to do down here. Actually, I don't know. I don't want to do that down there. Because after, we'll do this. After there. Right? Because I don't want it to be a, like, keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper into functions. I would rather it be, do a loop. And we'll say bool combat is over equal to false. So we'll say start and then while combat is over, or while not combat is over, take turn, or next turn, take turn. So then we don't need to worry about this. It's just every time the take turn function ends, we'll loop back up. So there we go. And then we'll set a flag to say if combat is over or not. Which would actually be when all the enemies are dead or when the player is dead. So we'll say public void check combat if player dot we'll say if player dot health is greater than greater than 0, and enemies dot length is greater than 0. Combat is over equals false. Else combat is over equals true. So after every take turn, we'll say combat, check combat. And then actually, instead of making this a while, we'll say do while. Space that down. So we're always doing this at least once, and then we'll check if combat is over. It really doesn't matter kind of how you set that up, but at least in this case, but oh well. I like this better of saying, hey, we're at least going to run this and then check if combat's over, because we're checking if combat's over at the end of everything before we lose. Okay. So we need to do one more thing. A.damage, and then we need to do a function private void enemy is dead, enemy and we'll say if enemy dot health is less than 0 or less than or equal to 0. Enemies dot remove shit, sorry, I didn't mean to bump my mic. Enemies array, let's just do a list. Count. Okay, so enemies dot remove enemy and dead dot add enemy. There we go. So then we'll call that on there. Enemy is dead. Enemy. So we have a different our C# classes sent by val or by ref. So I was just looking to see to remind myself how C# does class references and pointers and whatnot. When we do this, when we get this enemy, we are creating a new reference. So we would want to get the ID of the enemy. We would want to get the index of the enemy, I mean. So select enemy. We could do int enemy. Say enemy index. And that would be enemy selected. So there we go. So then up here, obviously, then we want to do int enemy index and say enemies enemy index. And then enemy is dead, enemies enemy index. Oh, but we're sending that to... No, that's fine, because we're changing the one that's actually in the enemies list. This will work fine, because it'll be able to find it here. Because my issue was that the enemies.remove doing this looks for an exact copy. So in the previous case, the health of whatever we were sending would have changed, but the one in the original enemies list wouldn't. So they would be two different things, so it wouldn't actually track correctly. But this should be fine now. We can leave that function as is. Enemy is dead. We say enemy's enemy index. There we go. For right now, let's just say combat is over equal to true. Just to run just one turn, just to see what happens. And then, so we need to go over here. We add our encounters, we do all that jazz, and then we say var combat is equal to new combat, which is classes.combat, sending it our player, and let's do the just rats encounter. So encounters just rats .to list. I could probably change this to be no. Yeah, I could change this to just be a list of enemy. Enemies.enemy. Enemies.list. New list of enemies.enemy. There we go. Same here. And then our encounter, instead of being an array, we say list of enemies. And then I need to change everything down here, but that's fine. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I had to go on a tangent there, but now it's just a list. Now it's a little easier to manage. So now we don't have to say to list. And then we want to say combat.start. Alright, let's see what happens. Okay, so player turn. We have magic, attack, magic, skill, item, flee. So let's say attack, because that's the only thing we've programmed. Enemies, rat, 6 of 6, 13 of 13, 7 of 7. So that's their health. So let's say 1. Okay, because dead is not set to an object. That's easy. We'll just say if dead is equal to null, dead equals new. List of enemies. Perfect. Alright, do it again. Attack. Rat 1, 8 health. Rat took 1 damage. Press any key to continue. And now our combat's done. Okay. So we have the player attacking. Now we need the enemies attacking. Like I said, they're right now they are just going to attack. So for the take turn, I'm just gonna say var a equals new attacks dot melee attack d die dot d6. Attacker is combatant and target is so here's the thing again. Oh no, I guess if they're always targeting the player is fine. Because I think even down here in our show menu, yeah, this is using player 2, so it's fine. The player will be fine to access directly. Combatant as enemy. There we go. And then a dot, so we'll do a console dot right line, and we'll say, let's take this line here, place it with the letter E, and say var E is equal to combatant. Problem is, this is our Q, not. Oh. This is where C++ would be nice because it would just be pointers. C# gotta get a little creative with how you're accessing it. Really, I guess it no. So I'm just trying to think about how to do this. So the problem with C# classes is that they don't exactly point to where you want them to. So just because I have these in a queue, this enemy array list in a queue, does not mean that just by doing this, the ones up here in the original list are going to change. They aren't. They're going to be whatever they were when they got entered. Unless I access them directly. So I'm just trying to think of how to handle this. Probably won't use the Q. That probably won't be a good idea, especially if we have a list. We have two different things here, so it'd just be better if we have our list of a player, our list of alive enemies, and our list of dead enemies. And I'm going to update this just to reflect that. So we know our player is going first every time. So we can say, get rid of next turn. We can say take turn player, and then check combat. And for each var, so again, we don't want to do a for each because that's not going to give us the exact reference. We want to say for int I equal to 0, I less than alive enemies dot count I plus plus. And then we can say take turn alive enemies index I. Set combat. Okay. Now this is fine. Now we can say we can reference this directly. So we'll say e.name attacked player for damage. A dot deal damage out int damage. And then again, let's go down to our show menu and grab this, just so we can make sure, just so that it waits for us, so that we know that everything's working. Otherwise, it would just fly on through and we would never see anything. And we'll also do a thing up here that just says E is starting their turn. Starting its turn. And then we'll put the help beside it because that's kind of our identifier right now. Max help. Okay. So let's run that and see what happens. So now this is basically full combat. I mean, both the player and enemy can only attack. But let's see what happens. Rat 5 out of 6 starting its turn. Rat attack player for 3 damage. Pressing a Q to continue. Rat 14 out of 14 is starting its turn. Rat attack player for 3 damage. Pressing a Q to continue. Rat 6 out of 6 is starting its turn. Rat attack player for 7 damage. Why did combat end? Oh, because I'm dead. They killed me. So we need to make sure we put in a message that says, hey, you killed him. So just like enemy is dead, we'll just say private bool is player dead. If player dot health is less than 0, less than or equal to 0. He is dead. So right now we just want to say console dot write line player is dead. And actually we would say too, we could just really quickly say combat is over equal to true. But actually we could do that instead. And then up here in our take turn, we can say if is player dead, combat is over equals true, and then we're gonna get our message logged. So we'll actually just put this on the one line. Okay, so now let's see what happens. So 1 attack. We have our rats. 6 damage. Rat 9 and 15 starting its turn. Attack player for 8 damage. Player is dead. Press any key to continue. Okay. Right. So we actually also want to say if player is dead, we do want multiple lines. We want to say we want to do that, but we want to then just say return. So we just want to bust out of this function. Then we don't want to continue on. So let's see how that works. And obviously these rats are very strong. I will either have to buff myself or bring the rats down to go through full combat. But rat took 4 damage. Rat 2 out of 6 is starting its turn. Rat attacked player for 4 damage. Press any key to continue. Rat 14 out of 14 is starting its turn. Rat attacked player for 5 damage. Player is dead. Press any key to continue. Oh, right. So we're busting out of the function. That's fine. I guess, really, this doesn't matter. Where we need to do this is up here in our loop. So for this, and then if combat is over, break. So we're gonna break our loop if combat's over. Okay. Now let's see. Player's dead, and now combat's over. Okay, cool. We have that. Let me go over here to the rats really quick and bring down their strength. So we want them to have a strength of like 8 to 10. And then dexterity 4 to 6. It's fine. It doesn't really matter. Dexterities we're not using right now, but it doesn't. Yeah, so it doesn't matter. I will also the attacking will take in some defense as well. We'll be checking their defense score to see if it hits or how much damage it deals, that sort of stuff. But that's more advanced. I just want to make sure everything's working first. So I want to see if I can kill a rat. Three damage, 3 damage, 3 damage. That's 9 damage. I'm dead. Okay, let's boost up our player then. This is something else I did. I'll probably get into this the next time I stream the collision engine stuff, but I did kind of change the collision engine to take a more component-based module. So you add components to a game object, and that's how the engine tracks sprites and transforms and colliders and things like that. Similar to Unity's, where Unity has the mono behavior, and then you add components to that. But we'll see. We'll see if I like it this way, or not. We'll see. But yeah, that's not the focus of this one. So where am I looking? What am I looking for? Game scene. Player. Let's give our player a D12 of health, and then let's make him level. Let's make him level 3. Let's just say level 3. Or level 2. But obviously those rats need scaled way down. I also actually realized I need to give myself some strength. I didn't give myself any attributes. So we'll say like 15, and then that's fine. We're not doing anything else. So 15 strength. .NET Gamer redeemed Hydrate. There you go. Thank you, I needed that. My mouth is actually getting really dry. Alright, so let me zoom this in a little bit actually. Player turn, we're gonna do attack. Enemies. We have different rats. We're going to attack the first one. Rat took 8 damage. Press any key to continue. Rat, 3 out of 11, is starting its turn. Rat attacked player for 0 damage. Press any key to continue. Rat attacked player for 3 damage. Rat attacked player for 0 damage. Cool. So now I take my turn again, and I say attack. Now we have our rats. So rat, one's at 3 health. One's at 10 health, one's at 6 health. No problem, I'm still working. Oof. I saw you were working on scanners today. I assume nothing good happened today. That's unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully my coding of an RPG can keep you entertained while you work. But we're going to attack the first rat again, so hopefully kill this rat. Rat took 4 damage. Okay. Press any key to continue. Rat 10 out of 10 starting. Deals 3 damage. Deals 1 damage. I'm still in this. I don't know what my health is. I didn't put in that thing to let me see myself, but we'll figure it out. We'll be surprised when we die. Yeah, that's good. That's always a plus. All right, so we're gonna attack again. Now we only have 2 rats, so that is working. So we have rat 1 and rat 2. We're gonna attack rat. Let's attack rat 2 this time. Rat took 4 damage. Hit me for 5 damage. Another one hit me for 1 damage. I've been hit for a lot of damage. I'm surprised I haven't died yet. So let's attack again. Attack rat number 2. Oh, what? Oh, because enemy is dead. Okay. That is my bad. I had these in the wrong place. So I was logging the message of how much damage the enemy took after they had been moved. Or actually just gonna say is enemy dead. And then let's log a message that just says e.name is dead. Rat has died. And then make sure we put our $sign on there. There we go. Okay. Let's also, when they deal damage to us, let's do another line that says player has gut out of gut health remaining. So we can say player.health and player.max. Yeah. So now we'll see actually how much health we have in between sessions. Name E does not exist. Right. It needs to be enemy.name. With a lowercase e. There we go. Okay. So now we're going to go through this whole thing again. But so I have 11 health remaining out of 14. 8 health. 5 health. Attack again. Rat 1. Rat has died. I have 1 health remaining. And now I'm dead. Okay. That's awesome. So now... Hey, Cubix. How you doing? Good to see you. Thank you for stopping by. We're just working on a combat system tonight. Actually getting back into working on a game project I had put aside for a bit. So this is our Max game project. And we're starting it in the Collision engine. This is the engine that I've been working on stream. And so now we're actually putting that engine to use with a game. So what I want to do then, so right now the only option the player has is the attack. So we need to figure out what we're going to do for the other options. It's also worth mentioning this is not all going to be in console. I'm just using the console right now to just using the console to interface, so I don't have to do a whole UI up and everything and all that stuff. So you made your own engine or something else? I've made my own engine. In past streams, you've seen me working on this, the Collision engine. This is all stuff that I have done. And so now we're actually putting it to use and running this in it. So if I just go quickly through this. This is the game window, drawing our little player here. But yeah, this doesn't show off all the features, obviously, but this is our actual game window. Wow, nice. Yeah. All right. So our second option is magic. We're gonna skip that one. I don't have a magic system in place. We actually don't have an inventory system in place yet on this player either. So we'll do flee. We'll do flee, and then we'll do the combat end for receiving loot and leveling up the player and everything. So we'll do those two. The show menu option 5 is to flee. So when the character's trying to flee, we could make a check on dexterity. Make a dexterity check. And then we could also, if the player has less than, we'll say half health, dex check is on disadvantage. We need a score to beat, though. We need a number to beat to flee. Neat. My anime and game design gives me access to Game Maker, so I should try and use it more. I started with Game Maker actually. That's what got me into everything. I enjoyed it. I used Game Maker though when it was just a drag and drop stuff. I haven't tried the scripting one, the actual like full Game Maker scripting language, but it wasn't a bad tool. There was I've seen a lot of cool games made on that one. So to flee, checking dexterity. If we're on half health, we're on disadvantage. We need a score to beat. That kind of makes sense. So to flee a battle, we'll say like 15. So like rolling a d20, you have to have 15 or higher. So right now we'll just do int score to beat equals 15. Talk to you later. Back to this work stuff. All right, thanks for stopping by. Hope all goes well. Don't stress yourself out too much with all this. Is this global, or is the value global? Are you talking about like this stuff like that I'm talking about? It's on the player object, but the player is global. So for like the dexterity modifiers and all that, would be the player dot attributes dexterity. So we have our score to beat right now. It's 15. It's an arbitrary number. That can maybe we'll come up with some actual, circumstantial number that could change as the combat goes on, make it harder to flee or easier to flee depending on certain things that happen in combat. But for right now, 15. And we're gonna say int check is equal to skill check Make sure we're using our RPG. Make check, and then we're gonna say die.d20 plus the player dot attributes dot total modifiers dot dexterity. That'll be our modifier. I'll actually say check is equal to 0, and then check is equal to that, because I want to say if player dot, oh my god, there we go, player dot health is less than or equal to, we'll do less than. If player dot health is less than player dot health divided by 2, max health, sorry. Player dot max health divided by 2. Then we want to say that our check, we want to make a check on disadvantage. With disadvantage. So what that's going to do is it's going to roll twice and take the lower number. And then we check if score to beat is less than check, or do it the other way around. If check is greater than score to beat, flee. So we'll actually just say combat is over equals true. And we want to go back up here. And again, after our player turn, we want to check if combat's over or break. We don't want to do the enemy turns if combat's over. Why is that order important? It's not important. I could have done it the other way and said, if score to beat is less than check, but doing it this way, putting the check first, we want to see if the check is greater than the score. So reading it, it makes a little bit more sense. It's less thinking you have to do. Like if it's the other way, kind of say if score to beat is less than check, why are we? Oh right, it's kind of not quite as. I guess looking at that, it's not quite as clear right off the bat. So doing it this way is a little bit more clear as you're reading it. So it's not code wise doesn't make a difference, but reading it programmer wise, it makes a big difference. It makes the code more readable, makes more sense reading the code, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so that's our flee. So now what we can just flee from combat, or at least attempt to. We can make our skill check. So let's do an end statement. Let's say console dot write line combat has ended. Just right now. And then so we're doing that until combat is not over. So we'll say after this whole loop, end. It doesn't really make sense that we're doing all this in the start function, but oh well. Because really we could probably do it in the constructor. So once we construct it, we're starting combat, but this is all right. We can change that later when we get there. So let's try to break this up right now, or run it right now. I mean, my brain is not working now. So we have our player turn. Let me scroll up to make this bigger again. We have our list of options. So we can attack. We can select our enemies to attack. All of them are going to attack me. I have 23 health this time. Nice, go me. So, now it's like, hey, I don't want to attack anymore. I took a lot of damage that round. I think I'm done. We're going to attempt to flee. Press any key to continue. It didn't show me a message, but because combat went on, the rats are attacking me again. Obviously, I didn't flee. So let's fix that. So let's go back down to flee. We'll do a console.write line here. No. Player attempted to flee with a score of, and then we'll do that and say check. Now let's put our $sign out front. And we'll say flee successful. Else flee failed. Why do I have a break here? Oh, because that's, yep, okay, that makes sense. That break makes sense there. All right, so let's start it again. Now I should get a message when I try to flee. So again, let's try to attack. Maybe we'll get lucky this time. 8 damage to the rat, not bad. They're going to attack me. Apparently, the last two are going to just both do 0 damage to me. But now let's try to flee. Player attempted to flee with a score of 17. Flee successful. Press any key to continue. What? Hold on. Why is combat still going? Okay, hold on. Combat is over. Oh. I know why. Okay. So, we take our turn. All of that happened, all the console prompt commands like that are in the take turn step and the show menu. So what happened was a take turn function ended when we fled, and then we have a function called check combat. What check combat does is says, "Hey, is the player health still greater than 0, and are there still enemies alive? If so, combat's not over. Otherwise, combat's over." So we want to check. We want to put something up here that says if combat is over. So if we've already determined combat was over from an earlier situation, like fleeing, we just want to return. We don't even want to run this function. So now we're going to skip the attack. We're just going to do the flee. Player attempted to flee with a score of 5. Flee failed. Pressing a key to continue. Now the rats are going to attack me. So obviously fleeing counts as an action. So they're now taking their turn. Now it's my turn again. We're going to try to flee again. Player attempted to flee with a score of 16. Flee successful. Pressing a key to continue. Combat has ended. So there we go. That's pretty cool. Now, the last thing that is important to get before we can consider the system done is on end, we need to give loot. So for right now, loot is just going to be XP, but I'll add loot tables to the enemies and gold amounts or things like that that you can get from the enemy on kill. For right now, we're just going to give the player I guess it doesn't matter because we don't even have an XP system on this player either. But this would actually be, we would give our loot here. So we'll say player dot. Do I have a level up? I do have a level up. And we'll say can heal. What's a player level up function do again? Get more health. So we'll say console dot right align player is now level player dot level with, and then we'll say dot dot dot, and then this will be player dot health capital H and player dot max health. Put our dollar sign and our semicolon. Okay, so this will just tell us, we're now level whatever, and we now have this much health because our level up code is set to give us more. We fled with a score of 18. Combat has ended. Player is now level 3 with 23 out of 23 health. So that works. That's what we wanted to do. But that doesn't make sense. Why would we level up? Why would we get loot, our level up in this case, if we fled? So we need a second flag. We need to say player fled equals false. So then on end, we can say if not player fled, then we get loot. So now if we end, we have to set that flag. So here, we'll say player fled equals true. And just we don't need to do this, but just to make it make sense, player fled equals false. So now when we run this, you know, we can try to flee. We failed that time. So now we're going to get attacked. Let's try to flee again. We failed that time. Now I'm not going to be able to. Player has -1 out of 15 health remaining. Player is dead. Okay. Oh! We gained our loot again. We gained our loot again. So that's another thing. I kind of forgot about that one, but I'm glad it came up. When we die, we don't get loot either. So again, we'll do another flag. Player died is false. And maybe global flags aren't, you know, the best. Maybe I could do something different, but I'd like to just write it first and then come back and refactor it. Otherwise, you know, spend too much time trying to write perfect code, and then it's bad code anyway. So is player dead? We want to say player is dead, and then player died equal to true. Else, put this here, and then player died equals false. Again, we don't have to do that because we're setting false at the top in the global, but just so that, you know, there's a little bit, you know, consistency, it's the same. Again, it doesn't matter. So now in our end, we check for if not player fed, if not player fled, and that's in the wrong spot. And not player died. There we go. Came to share this with you. I was talking to Jeffrey about Snyder Cut, and he just asked me, does the new stuff change the Marvel Universe at all? Well, does it? It's a great question, Jeffrey. You know, tell Jeffrey he should stop by tomorrow when we talk about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we can answer that question. That if the Snyder Cut of Justice League has any effect on the Marvel Universe. Okay, score of 5, flee failed. Now the rats are going to attack. They don't kill me. Let's try to attack this time. Let's attack the weak one, the one with 6 health. Took 4 damage, now it's got 2 health. And I have 6 health, so we're going to try and flee again. Score of 6, flee failed. Now I have 3 health, -2 health. I'm dead. So now it should just say combat is over. Combat has ended. There we go. Beautiful plug. Yeah, I thought so. Wait a minute. Is that a wait a minute about my plug, or you about to tell me something, Cubics? So that is, you know, kind of the basic functionality. Basically, we have a start turn. We don't need this anymore. This function can go. We have a start, which starts our loop. Tells us to take the player turn, then check combat. We check if combat's over, and if it is, we break our loop. If it's not, we loop through each of the alive enemies, checking if combat is over at the start of each time. Actually, it makes more sense just to check at the end. Again, it works both ways. We would be checking on the next alive enemies thing, but checking at the end is a bit safer just in case we're on the last enemy. Oh, message above. Yeah. Jeffrey's not the brightest, but we love him anyway. So again, we're looping through each enemy, taking the enemy's turn. Right now, the enemy only attacks. Like I said, I will try to implement a GOAP system for the enemies to give them a bit of AI later, but not right now. And then we're checking combat again. If combat's over, we break out of our loop. And then while combat is not over, we keep looping. Once that's done, we call our end function, which says, hey, combat's over, checks if our player fled or died, and if they did either of those things, we don't give them loot. And that's it. That's kind of the basics. There's other things that I still have to implement other things for, So magic, we don't have a magic system yet. Items, we don't have the player inventory yet. And that would be, I'll do the player inventory and the enemy loot at the same time. Let's see, what time is it? 7:30. That's not too late. Maybe I'll get started on a loot. So we'll do enemies and loot tables, and then we'll see where we get to. But before I do that, I'm gonna do a quick BRB. I'm gonna use the restroom, get some more water, and then I'll be back. So I'll catch you guys in a minute. Enjoy the music. I put on the wrong screen. I'm sorry. I'm not leaving. I'll be right back. I'm back. There's no music? Are you guys not hearing music? Okay. Okay, cool. I was worried because a little behind the scenes. I'm using the soundtrack by Twitch. So can't hear music at all. Weird. Hold on, I'm gonna mute my desktop audio. I even have it turned all the way up. That's okay, that's weird. I mean, I'm using Twitch soundtrack, which sends different um yeah, I muted my audio track. That's why you couldn't hear it then. But so it's sending a different audio track to Twitch But I thought that was just for the VOD, so it must be for the actual live recording too. Yeah, I know Mitch used it before. That's why I was trying it out. It's weird. Huh. Well, that sucks. I'll figure that out later. Grabbed a cookie while I was gone, so I'm sorry, but I'm gonna eat. Okay. I need to switch to my main scene. There we go. Cookie. It's a white chip macadamia nut cookie. What was I gonna do? Loot tables. That's right. So let's head into our enemies. And this is gonna be on the basic enemy, so the one that everything inherits from. And we're gonna go ahead and on here say private loot table. Call that loot. Okay. Which means we now have to add a parameter. God damn it. Grab the whole thing. Thank you. Okay, so we'll put the loot, and we'll put it with the after the health die. So then for basic enemies, we want to give them a loot as well. And then for the elite enemies, we want to give them a loot. And then we need to give a public accessor for that. So public loot table. Loot. Accessing. Loot. Okay, so now we can access that. So now if we go back into our combat, we can go through and dead enemies 0.loot. So we can access the loot of that, of all the dead enemies now, which is cool. So the loot system, if I open up the RPG and then go to game data, loot tables has a dictionary, float, and inventory item for the table. The float is the percent chance you need to get the item. So right now we're returning a single item, but I was thinking a while back of doing, you get more items depending on the number you the random number you get, but for now this is fine. We just do the get inventory or get loot, and it will return us an inventory item, so it's an item with a quantity, and that's our loot. So to do that for our player, or to give our player the item, we need to give him an inventory. So we can say private inventory. And then let's leave that private for right now. And let's say public void. No, never mind. Let's just expose it. It doesn't matter. Public inventory. inventory. Exposing inventory. There we go. So now we have our inventory object on the player, which means we can go through and on end. Let's not do our level up now. Let's do something different. We're actually just going to copy this into the level up function. There we go. But what we want to do, if we didn't flee and we didn't die, we want to say for this time we can just do for each, doesn't matter. For each var e in dead enemies, we want to player.inventory.add inventory item e.loot.get loot. And that's easy. That's easy enough. So let's give our little rats an inventory or a loot table. So we'll say new loot table. Oh, that's right. New dictionary. Oh, excuse me. And then in this dictionary, we're going to say new float I'm trying to think about how to do this. We have a 100% chance. Okay, so this using it as a dictionary is not going to work quite how I thought, but I should be able to say .add. Yeah, there we go. So we could say .add, and then we'll say 100% chance to get new inventory item, which is new item, new object information, ID 0. That's fine. It doesn't. I'm not using the IDs. We'll go back and change these later. But oh god, I knocked my headset off my head. So string name. We're just gonna call this rat table. Description. A rat tail. I thought it was obvious. So that's our item information, and then we want to give it a is discovered, just false, that's for something else. Rarity, null, again, something else. And then our quantity, where quantity is going to be 1. You're going to get 1 rat tail. One and then 0. Okay. Now we put in our. Nope. I lied. Do this. Then we do this. And then we do that. There we go. Loot table does not contain a constructor that takes 6 arguments. There we go. There we go. And I can't do that now, can I? Damn it. Okay. So we're gonna say up here, const loot table, rat loot table is equal to new crap. Okay. So, basic enemy. We're gonna change this up. Basic enemy is going to, instead of taking in loot, we are instead going to take in params, inventory item. Params key value pair float inventory item loot items. Make sure we're using that. Params parameter must have a single dimensional array. Oh my god, you are having my ass right now. Dictionary. Get rid of the params. Equal to null. New loot table. Sending it loot items. There we go. So now on our rat, we're gonna say nope. We're gonna run into the same issue. Let's copy this inventory item. Put it up here. Comment it out. Having the ass. This is having the ass right now. Okay. You know what? That's fine. And then we'll just say we're sending it the new loot table. So if we go back here, we don't even need to do this. We don't need to do this. We don't need to ask for a loot table from the base class. We just need to create a new loot table and then add on to it. That's all we need to do. I thought maybe I could use it the way I wanted to, but I can't. So we have to evolve and adapt and overcome. Okay, so we're going to get rid of the loot parameter. We're just going to say this dot loot is equal to new loot table. The new dictionary. And then on all of our enemies, then we can add our loot tables. So our rat, we're gonna say loot dot oh my god, I can hear the music now. It's just so quiet. Oh. Well, how's that? I don't want it that loud, but there we go. That nice smooth jazz. You like jazz? So on our rat, we're gonna loot.add, and this is where we go back to the engine, because I made a mistake, and I apparently wrote this in 3 seconds and did not think about what I was doing. Go figure. Add loot, giving it a float, and an inventory item, chance, table dot add chance item. Oh, I hate that there's a playlist called PogChamp. Yeah. Oh, my brother's home. Like, why is my dog barking? Or why is his dog barking? Oh. So loot.add, 100% chance to get it. Oh, I need to build this actually. Okay, so loot. Huh? Am I not using? Yeah. Why? Okay, let's go to our references. Let's remove that one. Add reference. Recent. Browse. Users. Source. Repos. Collision engine. Collision engine. Yeah, debug. Loot table dot. Oh! Idiot fuck. It's add loot. There we go. Okay. So now we're adding our loot to that. And let's run it, see what happens. Breaks. First try. That is because elite enemy is... It's because enemy is still expecting... Oh no. There we go. Okay, so we're going to attack. Rat 2. Rat 2 took 5 damage. Now they're attacking me. I have 12 health remaining. All right, let's attack again. Rat 2. Rat has died. Okay. Attack again. Rat 1. 4 damage. Rat 1. And I'm dead. Alright, so we're going to change our encounter over here. The Just Rats encounter. To be just the one. Just the one rat. Combat has ended. Okay, so E. Loot. Player inventory get returned null. Ah. Right. Because I didn't actually initiate it. Instantialize it. Okay, let's do it again. Just the process of going through and killing this rat. It's dead. Okay. So actually I want to put breakpoint here. And actually I could probably just pause it and say player inventory. Nope, okay. I need to rerun this whole thing. That's fine. One. Rat has died. Alright, now we have added something into our inventory. That's an inventory item. Because we haven't discovered it yet. That's fine. But we know it's a rat tail, because I added it, so we know it's there. And then we can do F10. There we go. Ouch. Okay. So, I think that's it. I think that's all I want to work on. Like I said, the goal was just to get something working, get a combat system that's working, and this works. I'm pretty happy with this. There's still some stuff I want to do, so we'll go up here real quick and do a quick to do. So we want to do. We need to add item use to the game. We have the inventories in here now, so we can do item usage. And then we need to add, so the ability to miss, so add hit checks before damage. And then use player use defender's dexterity as a target score. So if the player is trying to hit the enemy, we would use, their dexterity score, maybe to see maybe if they can dodge the attack. And then add toughness. So toughness was the one that was dexterity plus constitution, which would be more for armor. We could try something with that. We'll see. Maybe the toughness number, the toughness score ends up being what this targets, but we'll see. And then we want to add magic. Add magic stuffs. And more loot and more enemies. Those are always good. We do need to get the boss. I do need to work on a boss system. Maybe that'll be the next stream. Not tomorrow, because tomorrow is Falcon and the Winter Soldier Breakdown. Not Saturday, because Saturday's Monkey. So Tuesday, Tuesday's my next stream. So Tuesday we'll work on, possibly the boss enemy. Like I said, I want to implement sort of a two-part system, or a stage system, so you can have any number of stages. The bosses can have any number of stages. And then we'll probably look at combat a little bit more, maybe try to add the item use in as well as these hit checks. So maybe next stream we'll try to knock these two things out as well. But that's it. I've been going for a couple hours now, so pretty good. Pretty happy with what we've done here. Got a combat system, so that that's what I set out to do. Feel accomplished. We got that done. We'll also have to obviously at some point work on a UI and actually tie this in with the graphics portion, so that we actually visually have combat here. Figure out how that would work and everything. But for now this is good. But yeah, so like I said, tomorrow's there we go. All right, so tomorrow, Falcon and the Winter Soldier Breakdown, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. First episode. So we're actually, when we started this, we were on like episode 3 or 4 of WandaVision. We're actually going on the first episode now of this, so this will be fun. And then Saturday's Monkey. So hope you guys enjoy the rest of the weekend of the content, and that's gonna be it for me. Have a great rest of your night, and love you all, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.